Gentlemen, we're off to another beautiful day on the route to Tone Town. I'm happy to be traveling the route with the two of you gentlemen, Grant Klassen, Goodwood Audio, Brian Omilion, Omilion Audio. And we have a wonderful and exciting podcast today, as always, where we're going to be talking about our personal pedalboard rigs. Some of us may even have more than one, speaking of myself in this particular context. And we're going to be sharing kind of what's on deck for us in terms of what's on the rig, how we're using it, why we've chosen the things that we've chosen. Maybe that will inspire you in some way to consider a new way to potentially, run your rig, maybe new pedals you might consider purchasing based on what we've said. But before we get started and have us led by the amazing Brian Omilion in this conversation, I want to mention a couple of our sponsors that make this podcast possible. Without them, we wouldn't be able to continue the podcast and the rate and frequency that we do. First of which is the Guitar Sanctuary in McKinney, Texas, home of Brian Omilion, the Guitar Sanctuary, and also Andy Timmons. So already a pretty famous lineup right there. Amazing retail establishment. They sell Goodwood audio products. They sell Vertex Effects, in addition to many of the products we're going to be offering today. Also, our friends over at Pedal Genie. It is like the Netflix of pedals, where you can actually rent pedals and you get to try them out in the comfort of your own home. And this gives you an ability to be able to check stuff out without the commitment to buy. Amazing company that is making this podcast possible. Also, our friends over at Bestronics. They sell all of the goods and materials, whether we're talking about pedalboard supplies, all the different manufacturers of jacks and plugs, whether it be Switchcraft, whether it be square plugs, whether it be Neutrik. They sell all that stuff under one roof. Bestronics, another great sponsor that makes this podcast happen. Also, lastly, but not least, Creation Music Company. They are an amazing company that makes pedalboard surfaces, that make all sort of pedalboard-based accessories. They also manufacture their own brand of plugs and connectors. These are almost always exclusively used by Brian Omilion. If you want to hire him for one of his pedalboard builds, through the Guitar Sanctuary, Creation Music Company makes some really great stuff. One of the best companies in the industry out of Bixby, Oklahoma, Creation Music Company. But without further delay, I'm going to turn it over to the great Brian Omilion.
Hello. All right. So this week we are talking about, as Mason said, personal pedal boards, which I'm really excited because it's always fun to hear, just what different musicians, as all musicians, we kind of geek out over each other's stuff. So this will be super fun. So I'm not going to waste any time and keep talking. Grant, do you want to kick it off with your pedal list? I hear that you don't have a
pedal list.
I would say a pedal list if it's not a board. So go ahead.
Let's call it a pedal board in flux. I don't currently have a pedal board. I have everything I need to make a pedal board other than, let's say, time to actually do it and really commit. So I actually have a list of pedals I've been kind of mulling over that I want to get into a board and hopefully start using. So the first thing I think that I wanted to bring up for my pedal board is the switcher that I'm going to use. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this one or not. Let me grab it. Look at that thing.
Never heard of that guy.
I know. So for those of you that are listening only, my whole face just got a huge lift here. Big improvement. I'm holding up an RJM PBC 10. The reason I actually wanted to use the RJM is two-part. It's actually not for the amount of loops, because I don't think I'll fill 10 loops. It's primarily because I want to use their MIDI editor. So they have great MIDI control. I'm familiar with it, which also helps. Don't have to learn a new environment. But it's extremely deep if you want to go crazy on MIDI control. The other thing, though, I really wanted to make use of was those last 4 loops that you can run in series or parallel. So those are the two main reasons I want the PBC on my board. It's a bigger switcher, but for me, it's well worth it. So that'll be kind of the heart of the pedal board. And then from there, my current, I'd say top 3 favorite compressors. The Diamond Yellow Comp.
Heck yeah.
It just makes things sound better. I know. It's unfortunate. So now this thing's even, it's gone up another notch in my books. But I turned it on. My guitar sounds better. It's hard to find a bad sound on this thing. So I figured I need all the help I can get. So let's just chuck this thing on there and make me sound a bit better. So that's going to be the compressor. With my setup, this may be a controversial one. Dongle attached here. I have just a 808. So a classic tube screamer. I play like Vox style amps with a telly. And again, it just does it for me. I've tried other boutique overdrives, like, those overdrives that people talk about and you're supposed to like because everyone likes them. Like one example for me, this is not a slight on this overdrive. I just haven't connected with
Total slight on this overdrive. Okay,
King of Tone. I think I hear other people play it. It sounds awesome when other people play it. I put it through my rig. I just can't connect with it like I do this 808. So this one just works for me. And so I love the 808. I use it to really push my amp and, get the most out of it. I'm also going to put on a JHS Clover. And I am, as I'm saying this out loud, blanking on what this is modeled after. The Edge, the Boss, is it the FET, the belt pack?
Yeah.
So that's what this is modeled after, kind of like a preamp style pedal. Again, to push the amp, to just get it sounding just a little bit of sugar on the setup, just a bit sweeter.
And the luck of the Irish.
Exactly. Why not, right? So now I'm kind of going with a green overdrive.
And if I don't mind me interrupting, please. I think that tube screamers always get a bad rap. They're
boring.
There's some people that don't, it's like pizza. It's all good, man, with tube screamers. It's hard to mess up with a tube screamer. It's like a diner that can't do scrambled eggs.
It's classic.
It's just hard to find a diner that could screw that up.
Yep.
They're so workable, and like every one of them sounds good. There's some people that are like, "What do you like? Do you like the do you like the TS808? Do you like the 9? Do you want it to have a JRC chip?" You know what? I can make a $99 tube screamer reissue TS9,
prove it,
or my TS Mini. I get them all to sound pretty much the same. Like if you can't get your $99 tube screamer to sound as good as a boutique tube screamer that's trying to do what the $99 tube screamer is doing, you're not putting in the work. You got to be eating 10 pounds of white flour pasta. Just
carbo
do
load.
the work. Put in the work. Put in the time. Learn your tube screamer. Don't be lazy. Don't do the cliff notes. You got to do the work.
Get to the meat and potatoes.
Yep.
Tube screamer the doctor notes.
Thank you for supporting me on that, because I always feel like a bit of an outlier with all these amazing overdrives out there. And I'm like, the tube screamer just does it for me. Like it just.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is a lot of people do tube screamers, so everyone's like, oh, oversaturated. But I'm like, come on, come on.
I mean, if it sounds good,
tube screamer,
it sounds good.
Do it, yeah.
The other overdrive I don't have with me today is a Bondi Effects Sick As. I think I've mentioned this one before, but that is an overdrive. I turn it on, intending to turn it back off, and every time I turn it off, I'm like, I need it back. Like my guitar now sounds better with it on.
But ironically, isn't that a Blues Breaker style circuit?
Yeah,
that one's a Klon. That's basically
a Klon.
Yeah, Breakers is a Blues Breaker, and then Del Mar. I can't remember what Del Mar was based on, but yeah,
I like the Del Mar. Del Mar is really good too.
Yeah, they do. John does great stuff at Bondi. He is. I always tell people he's too smart for his own good. He knows so much about the circuits and the gear that he builds, and he loses me in about 10 seconds. But he builds great stuff. So the Sick As, again, is one that connects with me, that I turn it on and I just like how it, touch sensitive the guitar is, how it feels. And so those are probably my 3 overdrives that I really enjoy. No fuzz on this board. I really just enjoy my guitar and amp. And so I chose and am choosing pedals that really accentuate that combo rather than fuzz, which is also fun, has a place, but just not on this iteration of my board. Sorry, fuzz. This is where I was going to get your guys' thoughts. the next section on my board, chorus.
Oh,
These are 2 chorus pedals. I'm holding up a Boss DMC DC2. Sorry, not DMC. DC2W, Dimension C.
love
It's
it.
the purple one, not the purple, the violet. That would be a violet color, right? And then an MXR stereo chorus. 2 awesome chorus pedals. I really love the Dimension C because of the limitations it has, which I know, why would you want limitations? I love limiting myself on a pedal board. I think giving yourself less than you think you need forces you to be more creative rather than having all the options under the sun. So I do like the limitations, but I do love the stereo aspect and the less limitations of the MXR stereo chorus. So I think I answered my own question. I'll probably go with the DC2W. They both sound incredible. If I was, again, just putting it out there, really stuck and didn't own these 2, I would probably check out Pedal Genie. I know they are one of our sponsors. What a coincidence that I'm mentioning them. But what better way to find out if you're going to enjoy a chorus pedal than trying them both out without purchasing them?
Yeah, Pedal Genie, rub the lamp, right? Get
exactly.
Three. You don't get 3 wishes, but you can get 3 pedals.
Is that a new slogan for Pedal Genie? I think so.
Rub that lamp.
Like
I don't know. There may be
So
too much innuendo.
So I'll go DC2W for chorus. Then I have a less known delay. Well, less common, not less known, less common delay. An MF104M by Moog. I don't know if you guys say Moog or Moog. Moog or Fooger. Moog or Foger. This thing is awesome because of its, obviously it's an analog delay, but has tap tempo, has basic MIDI control. But the drive section sounds awesome, and the modulation section sounds incredible. So it's a massive. I mean, this is like 3 pedals worth of real estate, but it sounds really
like
good.
bigger than the automaton, isn't it?
Exactly, it is actually. It
huge.
is. So I really enjoy this one, but to counter what that one can't do, and everything else I may want to add in, I have an H9, crisp digital delays, and whatever else takes my fancy. The H9, I will say for those people maybe on the fence with like something like an H9 versus a Line 6 HX Stomp, I know they're slightly different pedals, slightly different options. I own both, and the reason I put the H9 on there, I like overall the algorithms of H9 more than Line 6. Again, when I turn on the reverbs or their delays, I'm like, that's what it's supposed to sound like. Like, that sounds really good for a multi-effect style pedal. And I go to Line 6, I'm like, their amp and cab sim for Line 6, incredible. But overall, their effects have that sound. Like, Strymon has a sound, Line 6 has a sound, H9 has a sound. And Eventide algorithms just kind of, they sit right. They feel good.
Right.
Back to that diner.
Even. Yep.
Exactly. If we're at the diner, it's steak and eggs, it just hits the spot. I
Steak
say that
and
as
eggs.
if I'm a steak and eggs guy, but I've never ordered it, but I feel like it's a boutique pedal I should have, and I'm going to go with that analogy. So that's what I'm doing for the multi-effects side. And then this just came in. Empress does a reverb, like a multi-effects reverb, and it's just an Empress reverb. What a great name. But tons of options on this. Their ecosystem as well is great. Lots of options. But this one came in the shop, and I just wanted to put it on my board. So I'm going to put it on my board. Don't try and convince me or talk me out of it.
I noticed you have a lot of representation of Canadian brands on your
Totally
pedal board.
coincidental.
And I feel like there's some favoritism there that needs to be pointed out.
Well, if I can just flip this before I answer that question, can we come back to this after you guys have talked about your pedal boards? And we'll just see if there's some American representation on there. And then we'll have the conversation.
Well, it's just unfair because there's a disproportionate number of American pedal makers.
So percentage-wise, you're saying I'm skewing my.
I'm saying
my
of all the known Canadian pedal companies.
Yep.
Past or present.
Yep.
Having what, 2 out of 10?
I will say that was not on purpose, but I may have some subconscious leanings that I am not aware of.
Bias sometimes is not conscious, and
Exactly.
we can unpack that in another podcast. About
I just like to say I'm sorry, So I'll really try and correct that next time.
And it's okay. It's okay to like your countrymen.
Yep, appreciate that.
And that's the problem, with
Liking
with the Canadians.
Yeah. Some say we're too patriotic. People don't say that about Americans. People say that about Canadians. So that's kind of the crux of my pedal board. A couple of overdrives, preamp, chorus, delay, and reverb, and I have the option for MIDI control, series or parallel, and then I'll do a junction box for it, and probably spend way too much time on that. But but that's kind of the fun of it. So yeah.
Do you know someone that can make you a good box?
Not yet, but I think there's probably some up and comers out there, and when I find them, I'll let you guys know on the podcast.
Nice.
Yeah, get that.
I'm curious. Go ahead. What were you gonna say, Mason?
No, I was encouraging him. I was just
encouraging.
Thank you.
Are you doing a volume or anything like that? Volume or expression? Do you think?
Expression will probably make it on the board, and to do that, I'll probably use like a Laylee, the mini expression. Laylee. There's so many company I feel, I'm going to be honest with you guys, little moment of vulnerability here. There are so many pronunciation options for different companies, of which there's only one correct answer, and of which for most of them, I do not know the correct answer. So I've already learned on this podcast, it's not Seox, it's Chalks. I don't know Moog or Moog. I don't know Laylee or Layla. There's Ojai or Ojai. That's another one that comes up. I always say Ojai for
OJ. Everyone says OJ. You got those OJs.
There's so many companies, and as I'm saying these company names, I'm always like, just be confident, man. Just say it. Just commit to one.
Listen,
but
just be as confident as me in our cable episode where I called the cable company Cauliflower Cables and not Coalfield Cables. And zero. I didn't even skip a beat until the owner messaged me. And it was like, I didn't know I had a name Cauliflower. I was like, I had it for breakfast. It was funny. No one commented on it. So just it's fine. No, it's funny for like Bondi. I get a lot. You got those Bondi pedals?
Yeah,
what
no.
What the heck is a Bondi pedal?
Yeah.
I don't know what Bondi is.
Yeah.
For those pedal consumers that are into bondage, they go for the Bondis. His compressor, man, just, you're really strapped down.
Oh my God. On that note,
Grant, here's separately about mispronunciations. I think the obvious one that's been going on since the beginning of pedals is Ibanez.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Ibanez, really?
Shouldn't it be Ibanez? There's no NEA over the N.
Oh.
Ibanez.
Cultural appropriation canceled.
Oh yeah.
Now I'm gonna be second guessing Fender. I'm gonna be second. Is it Vokes? Where are we at? So maybe that's another episode.
The long O, yeah. I get it. Yeah, I've always wondered. Yeah, with Ibanez, because it's a Japanese company. You wouldn't, unless there is some. Maybe there is it is a Japanese name with that pronunciation. But I just looked at it and I thought it was like Ibanez. Where there would be an NEA over the end. But
interesting. I never thought about that.
Here we are.
Yeah.
40 whatever years later.
Did we just take a couple steps away from Tone Town, or is this honesty and vulnerability getting us much closer?
I think this is just, we're in the discovery phase.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's like stopping at that sketchy gas station. You're just that kind of that.
Asking if we're even going in the right direction.
All right. Well, do we want to include guitars in this, or we just want to purely keep it pedal boards?
I think for time's sake, let's stick with pedal boards, and then if we want to go into that, if we have extra time at the end, we can go that route. But yeah, I think Grant, do you feel like you've sufficiently spoken about all the things? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Mason?
Well, I have my board that I'm working on. I have a couple of boards, but I thought it was most appropriate to talk about the one that's kind of slowly been in its assembly phase, which, well, I'll say as an aside, I really try to challenge myself to do the most that I can with the smallest pedal board. So it's rare that I'll build a pedal board for myself that's larger than our smallest size pedal board, which is 17 inches by 10, which is called the Travel Light. And ordinarily for a Travel Light, I don't use the versions that have cutouts for like wahs or volumes or expressions, because I really want it to stay pedal centric. And then if I need those pedals, I'll build some sort of, audition loop or something where I can bring them off the pedal board, but still be wired appropriately in the signal path. So I have a few photos. I have it next to me, and I can hold it up to show you some explicit, images of it in demonstrated. But I also have a screen share here. So if you are watching on YouTube, you can see exactly what it is. Now, this one I kind of cut off the edge, but you can kind of roughly see what it is that I'm doing. And I have here, and we'll go into the order, but just to name what we have a Funky Vibe from Sabatius. We have this all black pedal is a J Rocket Clockwork. And the label, I had left it kind of like on a windowsill that I have here in my office, and I had left the shades up, and it kind of delaminated the decal on it. So I just ended up pulling it off at that point because I could never get it to like stick back down because the corners had kind of like come up and started to do the curl.
Yep.
And it's actually metal, their decal, so it can get pretty sharp on the edge, especially as it kind of curls back. So I just ended up pulling it off and labeling it. And this isn't an attempt to, disguise what it is. It is a J Rocket Clockwork. It is an amazing analog delay. We'll talk about it a little more in a second. And then I also, like Grant, have a Dimension C DC2W. I have an Analog Noir treble booster, Vertex Boost, Steel String Supreme SRV, Ibanez Tube Screamer TS9, and I have a Prescription Electronics Experience pedal. And then under the hood, let me go to this other thing here under the hood so you can see what I got underneath. Under the hood, I have a Cab Zeus, and I'll talk about how that's being used. I have a Polara Reverb, which is a stereo reverb, and then you can see that I have a Chalks 7 that the Polara Reverb is sitting on top of. I also have a Chalks 4, which is mounted to the underside of the bridge. So I have Chalks power supplies. Also, check this out. Nobody knows about these. You see these mini Switchcraft RCA right angles.
The right angles.
That's
nice.
what. Yeah. So those are pretty cool. So getting back to the signal path. So it starts first. This is going to surprise some of you. It starts first. Let me just see if I can go back to this. It starts first, comes in passively, no input buffer, hits the Funky Vibe. Now, the reason that I did this was it was a few-fold. Some vibes I found seem to do better after fuzz. Some do better before. This also can have some impact depending on what type of amp you have and how dirty it is. The one cool distinguishing feature about the Funky Vibe, and there's lots of vibes that I use regularly and love, and this is just one of them. I also really like the Sir Henry vibe is really great, which is the one that's designed by Dustin Sears, who had Kenny Wayne Shepherd's original Univibe that was formerly owned by Jimi Hendrix. That one's a really great one. There's many vibe makers out there. The ones that the Violet vibe is a really cool one. There's so many great vibes out there, but the reason why I use this one is because you can leave it on but bypass the modulation of the chorus or vibrato and just leave the preamp in. And you can use that as like an old school input buffer that does a cool thing with the fuzz. And so for that reason, it's cool because you not only can use it as a vibe, but you can also use it as this kind of preamp that has a cool interaction with the fuzz when you hit the cancel switch. So I'm keeping it on there for now as the first thing in the chain, and then it goes to the Prescription Electronics Experience fuzz. And this is an old one from the 90s. And guys like Doyle Bramhall and Charlie Sexton and people like that have used this, two native sons of Texas. And it's a very cool fuzz pedal. It's got an octave feature. I don't use the swell feature, but that's kind of an interesting and unique feature that it has. And then after the fuzz, it goes all the way to the opposite side of the board to the analog noir treble booster. And I had this made to the Cesar Diaz spec. And this is a really cool treble booster. And and the reason why I found out about these guys is because I was looking for a mini treble booster that could fit on the board, because I couldn't fit the ones that I would ordinarily use that were a little bit more of like a standard Hammond 1590 size box. I could only go with a mini one. And I knew that somebody out there must make one. I knew Analog Man had a mini like Beano boost or something like that, but it's a little bit different. It's more of a classic Rangemaster than the way that the Cesar Diaz one was done, which is slightly different than that. And they were willing to do it, and it sounds really great. And in fact, I have a video that I had put up in our stories maybe a couple weeks ago where I'm using it in combination with the Tube Screamer, and it just sounds insanely good. So again, recap, we got Funky Vibe, Fuzz, Analog Noir, treble booster that's set to the Cesar Diaz style treble booster. Then it comes back to the Ibanez TS9. Then it goes to the Steel String Supreme SRV, which some version of a Steel String is always on my board as kind of like an after overdrive gain section. It sounds great. I usually just leave on the Steel String side all the time, and I use it with the Tube Screamer a lot because it really just helps thicken that up. And then it goes to a Vertex Boost. Now, this Vertex Boost has obviously an expression out like all of them do, and that's wired into an audition loop in the side of the pedal board. So when I want to use a volume pedal, I can plug it into there. It's running through the Vertex Boost, so I don't have any issues with the volume pedal impedance or tone suck because it's all isolated through the boost. And when I don't plug it in, it just sends the signal back to the boost and everything works as it normally would, as though there were no volume pedal in play. After the boost, it then goes out to the front of the amplifier. So it goes into the input of whatever amplifier you may then use. From that amplifier, and let me go back to the under the hood shot. Let me try that again. Under the hood shot. Let's go share. There it is. After that, it comes out from the interface box that you can see here kind of on the right side. It comes under the hood, and then it goes back to the upstairs. So again, we're going to go back upstairs again. From a line out box, and it's going to feed my wet effects. So again, all of the things from the Funky Vibe to the boost are all hitting the front of the amp. That amp is my dry amp. I have a line out box that's sitting on top of that amp that's tapping off the output transformer, padded down to line level, and then it's feeding my wet effects, which in this case are the J-Rocket clockwork delay, going in mono in, stereo out into the Dimension C, which is a very, very common sound. I did a video on this maybe 6 months ago about sort of the unknown effect that SRV, Stevie Ray Vaughan, used on a lot of the early records, including the ones that he played on of David Bowie's, where he would use a Boss Dimension D rack unit in parallel with his amp on a low setting to get a little bit more dimension. And I showed some clips of isolated Stevie Ray Vaughan where you can really hear it, and then I demonstrate how you could incorporate it. Because Stevie Ray Vaughan used it after the microphone that was miking his amp, the most similar way you could create it to be in parallel with your dry amp is to do it in this fashion. So I'm doing the same thing, and I'm using it on the SDD 320 setting, which is the Dimension D rack unit setting that the Dimension CW does. So I've got that running in stereo, and then it goes underneath the pedal board after the chorus and goes into the stereo reverb, which is the Polara, and we've done lots of videos on the Digitech reverbs, because Digitech and Lexicon are the same company, or at least in the end of their 10-year were. And so it's got some of those same algorithms that are found in some of my favorite reverbs, like the Digitech Hardwire RV7. This is a great one. I would have put an RV7 under there, actually, but it wouldn't fit because I didn't have the clearance to close the lid of the pedal board without it kind of sticking up a little bit. So I went with the Polara here, which is also equally good. And then that goes stereo out into the Cab Zeus, which gives me my cab speaker and microphone simulation for the wet side. So those will be hard pan left and right in my DAW, and then the dry would just be straight up the middle. So I have my delay, chorus, and reverb all after the amplifier, after the line out, hard pan left and right. And then I have all my dry effects up through the boost, all dead center as its own channel separately from the wet. So I can mix it as a wet, dry, wet. There's no switcher on here. Everything's in series. There's no mixer in here, but I do have the wet effects in parallel with the dry. And again, Chalk's power supplies on this, travel light pedal board. These are all things that you could get from a place like the Guitar Sanctuary, one of our sponsors of the show, any of the effects that we mentioned. Or if you were curious about checking out any of the effects I talked about, this could be also something that you would rent from the Pedal Genie, the Netflix of pedals. Pretty cool stuff on this board, I think. I don't know if that was all clear, if there's any questions for clarifications or comments you want to make. I'm still in the stage where I'm wiring the power cables, so there is time for adjustments if there is input that you all have.
I just like the fact that we all use the Dimension C. my board I have now, I've been playing between the CE and the Dimension C. And I like the CE, but all the getting the knobs and setting the different settings, kind of depending on what I like, I just don't like. That's why I like the Dimension C, because of how easy it is to click the switches. So I think that's awesome, but I love it. I like the whole setup of it.
I think my only question is, are you running the clockwork, since it's your wet section? Are you running it with quite a high mix, or have you messed around with running those in parallel? And I don't know if all those pedals can do, I know the Dimension C can't, but like a kill dry style sound, or has this been kind of the best way to do it for the sound you're after?
Yeah, well, none of these do kill dry, so we can't, and if I did, then I would need the mixer to kind of get them to I think be as cooperative as possible. And because I was running them all in series, I'm just leaving the dry signal in all of them.
Yep.
So they are in parallel with the dry signal because they're coming after it, and they're running basically the same signal as that, but they're not in a mixer of any kind. So I still have, the separation of all my wet and my dry and all that stuff, but they're not, in a parallel mixer or anything like that. So I found this to be the best way to keep it maybe like halfway or 1 foot in, let's say, kind of the vintage style, where everything pretty much in front of the dry amp is like a completely analog, old school style fuzz overdrive boost style thing.
Yep.
After it leaves the line out box, however, it then, goes into, well, I guess actually the only digital pedal I have on the whole thing is the Polara and the Cab Zeus. Everything else is analog.
Yep.
But there really isn't any options for analog reverb unless I got like one of those like spring reverbs that has like a spring in it. And the truth is that my plan is for this, because this is kind of a bluesier, sounding board, especially just given the type of effects that are on here. I probably will be using an amp that has spring reverb.
Yeah, nice.
So there will be some, and so I plan on only really using the Polara if I wanted to add maybe like a little hall or a little plate reverb in a kind of a subtle setting. And even the delay, I don't plan to use really aggressively. I'll probably use it as more of like a slap back, it also has tap tempo on it, which makes it really flexible. And I can't say enough good things about the J Rocket clockwork delay. It is by far the best modern memory man that you can get. They really took great lengths to recreate that sound and also sort of fix some of the errors of the original. And it's designed by the same guy that designed the original Electro Harmonix memory man. And he's, so if you got, Mick Davis still doing, the memory man stuff for them, you got kind of one of the OGs of analog delay that's designing this thing. And so It's really a fantastic pedal. I can't say enough good things about it. And the DC2 equally is really good. Do you guys like combine the switches where you hit two at once, or do you usually just use like one setting at once? You guys know about that, where you can like push two buttons and then it can get.
I'll just kind of mess around with it. It's just such a fun pedal. Like it's so basic as far as the controls, but you can just sit in front of an amp for an hour just messing around with it. You're just like, the 80s. This is good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
There's so many cool options, and the two switches is great if you want to mess around with more sounds. But I'll just usually cycle through them as I'm playing and just enjoy them all.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Oh man. So for mine, I have as well as some photos. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see this. Otherwise, if you're listening, just envision. All right. Once I get access, it says disabled.
Oh, let me get this screen share here fired up for everybody.
Right.
Just building up some tension.
Dun dun dun. Drum roll.
All right, there you go.
All right. Okay. So let me find it. All right. This one. Okay. So if you're watching, you will see I just completed this. Like just completed this. I've had a lot of different versions of boards, a lot of different options, which has been fun. I've had super big PVC 10 builds, lots of creation flat boards and everything. And just with my playing right now, I only play like once a week. And by the time I get to practice, like I listen to whatever set I'm playing the whole week, and then Saturday night I'll practice. So I needed a very basic setup to get what I needed in the sounds and the pedals that I've been using. I've actually had everything on the pedal train for the past couple weeks, just kind of getting the sounds that I liked. I don't know, is it allowed? I just couldn't afford to keep buying more flats.
You were on the train.
I was on the train. I was on that train.
All right.
So it was more like this, like beta, trying to figure out what I liked, because I like all sorts of pedals. So I ended up with the Vertex. This is the tour, not the tour. This is the Travel Plus. With
so 22 by 11.5.
It's I thought it's 20 by 11.
20 by 11.
I could be wrong. Yeah, 20 by 11. And then if I forget this is the TC. I think they call it the TC4 bridge style, where it's like
TC3. I think it's TC3.
Yeah, so it's like the V1 versions. There's no volume cutout. It's just the bridge cuts off right before the volume. So the bridge is probably like, I don't know, 16 or something wide.
Yeah, I think you leave. I think it gives you like 4 or 5 inches for the volume,
which is great, and that's exactly what I needed. So first thing I have going in is the RC booster. So I plug straight into the RC booster. And it's always on for me. I'm using it as kind of a shaper because I play a Duojet and a White Falcon. It's easier for me to just adjust how much bass is in the pedal. I don't use any of the gain. The gain's all the way off, if you can see it. Right there. It's all the way down. And then the volume's at noon. I think treble's at noon. Everything's at noon. Except bass. And then it goes into the Quartermaster. I think. I can't quite. Yeah, okay, so I'm sorry. It goes into the Quartermaster, and then the Quartermaster by Gig Rig, which is great. It's really simple, and it's very compact for what I needed.
True bypass
I think
looper.
that those are probably the best true bypass switchers that are out there now, because they're very clean with their relay switches. Nobody is really doing a really good quality true bypass strip. So shout out Gig Rig.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. And they come in 2, 4, 6, 8, and I think 10 loops, which is really cool. I actually got hooked on one a couple of months ago, and I did it for a guy and just found how convenient it was. So the cool thing about this is that I have the Mulholland overdrive, which is in loop 1. If you can see it tucked in the back corner. That's my main overdrive. And then I have the Vertex boost in channel 2, and then I actually go to the chorus. I have a really weird configuration. This is different than other people would do. The chorus is in loop 3, and then the Pog is in loop 4. I have tried so many different iterations. I had a PBC6 set up, and I had different presets of different orders and how different things reacted. I didn't like the pog in the beginning. The chorus, there's just different options, like where I could put it. It could go in the front, but I just liked how they reacted with the drive and boost. That's why I always say just kind of test what you're doing, before, and it fit my sound. And from there, before I say that, I want to mention on the gig rig, on the Quartermaster, they have this cool little dip switch on the back where you can individually turn on the loop. So I think it's red mode. So we'll turn the loop on and off. Or if you push the dip switch in, it turns the LED to a blue mode. And it's for each switch has the push button switch. If you say me, I have loops 1 and 2, the dip switch button engaged. So if I step on 1 and then I go to step on 2, they don't stack. It just jumps over to the secondary, because I don't actually stack like a boost on my overdrive. For me, it's too muddy. I slowly use the RC booster for the clean tone, the overdrive for the overdriven tone, and I actually use the Vertex boost as a boosted clean tone. So if there's like a boosted clean tone part that I need, I happen to do that. I've never been one to stack. I've said it before. I'll say it always. I've never liked stacking overdrives. Overdrive and boost stacking also just gets a little muddy for me. So I just utilize my pickup selector depending what I need.
Is the boost connected to the volume pedal, or is the volume pedal its own thing?
The volume pedal is actually its own thing.
Okay.
Because I put the boost in the loop like that, I didn't want the volume pedal like that. I may change it.
Where is the volume pedal?
So the volume pedal is no, you're good. The volume pedal is actually out of the Quartermaster going into the A3 volume. And I really like the A3 stuff. I've found zero tone loss. I've used the tuner out. A lot of people are like, don't use a tuner out. There are some you don't use it on. This one is not one of them. I've always had really good tone across the board. No really loss or anything from it. So the tuner out is hitting that very, very beat up TU2 right there. Where
missing a jack too. Did you sacrifice a jack?
I did. So on a different board, I was so close to the edge that it was hanging off. So I actually unscrewed it and let it fall in just so it would physically fit on the board. And then I just never found the lug, and I don't really feel like opening it back up to find it. It's just like whatever. I only did a tuner in.
I have some washers and nuts for the Boss jacks if you need one.
Thank you. So
that's commitment to a layout, man. That's awesome.
I think it was in that moment that I was just like, screw it. I don't need it. Screw it off. So out of the A3, and for me, the A3 is very smooth. I use the mini one on a different board, and this is the longer version. This is like an Ernie Ball size, and it's the blacked out version. So, and you can't see it. Can you see my cursor? I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, cool. Okay, so in between this bridge leg and the volume pedal is actually the
I see that. Yeah,
brick.
I see that it's where the mains come in. I see.
Yeah, so where the mains. Yeah, so I didn't want to have to keep unplugging, because one thing with the Ojai stuff is those jacks can break inside because they are plastic inside. So I did not want that. So I used dual lock on one side, and then I did the hook and loop. I don't know what side it is. It's the softer side, or whatever, the loop side. Yeah. I actually Velcroed it to the thing, so I don't never have to unplug it, which it's convenient. And then out of the volume pedal, it's going up to the timeline, and then stereo to the big sky, as you can see, and then stereo out. All the way down here is an output box by Goodwood Audio. So I can do stereo if I need to. I do 2 different configurations. I have a stereo out option with the UA Dream and a Canvas. They're literally Velcroed on top of each other. Like, you power that with like a 1 spot or something, because the Ojai's up here. Almost everything is, I think I took every spot up. So I have a stereo option, but I don't know if it does this. If I want to switch screens, So I have the option to do stereo, or I can do mono, obviously through the box. But I have the mono option that lets me do it. Can you see the other screen?
Not yet.
Still your board, which is looking great.
If you go up
Thanks.
to like if you go up to like the screen share again, you can like reshare a new screen.
Got it. Okay. The reason I have, well, not only for the great ground phase and summing, is I also needed the option to be able to do mono out because I'm utilizing my Jackson Ampworks amp with an aux box. I've just realized, I just decided I wanted to try using an amp again. I've always really liked the aux stuff, and I've been getting some really good tones out of it.
Is the aux just so you don't have to mic the amp?
So we're in a school for our church plant, so they at this moment don't really want us using live amps because the hallway that I could put it in is like right by the kids' classroom. So he basically said, let us save the trouble of someone saying turn it down or something and you sacrificing tone. Just don't use it. And I said, no, I have an alternative. And I've always liked the aux boxes. I get the aux box out. I set it to the very last preset. I think it's preset 4 or 5. Turn off the delay that's set on it, and I don't touch anything. I just leave it.
And so is your amp speaker not connected at all? It's just all through the aux?
It's actually connected. It's going out of the head into the aux, and then the aux is sending into the speaker because there's like a speaker. There's actually a speaker knob, and then like a 1/4 inch output knob and everything. And while we are sound checking in the beginning, and I'm trying to get my tone instead of hearing them from my ears, I just turn up that output on the speaker, so the speaker is kicking. I can hear it, and I can set my clean tone. Okay, that's how I like it. And then I'll turn off the speaker, and I utilize the 1/4 inch outs on the back of the aux into a DI to go XLR into the system. And it's basically just a dual mono signal. It's really simple. Our in-ears are mono. Our system is stereo, but there's not a point for me to run stereo ping pongs or anything if I can't actually hear it. It just doesn't make sense for me. It's kind of robbing me of that goodness tone. But so that's what I'm using for right now, and I really like it. Obviously, if I could have 2 amps, I would, or if I could have them live, I would just mic them. I just found miking them just to be inconsistent, especially in an echoey cafetorium. It just very fluctuates on tone.
A cafetorium.
It's called a cafetorium, so
I've
it's
never
a
heard that before.
Yeah,
Dang.
so it's a cafeteria and an auditorium,
But not a cafe.
but not a cafe. And there's and the ground is like that, everything's echoey, and the only thing is treated is the ceiling. So it just happened to be just one of those things that instead of fighting them, I want to try this. Plus at home I can crank this up. You can't tell, but like my volume knob is at noon. Like all my knobs, like they're pretty high. The cool thing about my amp is I have a body knob, so I can actually roll back how much low end I have, or if I want it more, since I'm using the Falcon. So, and I've been using the Falcon for probably 2 or 3 weeks in a row, just because I just been digging that tone. So it's really simple. It's not very complicated. The overdrive is Teltronic. For me, it's simple. I've had way more complicated stuff. Especially like the wet dry. After we did the wet dry wet podcast, I went and did wet dry wet and everything, which was also awesome. But yeah, that's me. If I forgot to mention it, the overdrive is the Teltronic overdrive, Mulholland overdrive, the exotic RC booster, Boss. It's the CE right now, but it will be the Dimension C, the Vertex boost, the EHX Pog, and I'm forgetting something. The Boss tuner, the switcher. So yeah, I mean, it's a great, really compact rig, and it all fits in a SKB case with my aux. So I just roll in with that, my double guitar backpack on my back, and then the combo camp. So it's nice and simple. So yeah, that's my setup.
I like it. I like that you have the micropog and not the nano. The micropog sounds a lot better, in my opinion.
I agree. I've had people that are like, oh, I want to switch it out. And I've never been like, oh, well, what's the difference? And then I played on it and I was like, oh, okay, that's the difference.
They're not the same pedal.
I liked it. I like the size of it. I've always liked, especially pedals that are in the switcher that have that hard click switch. Mulholland has it. RC Booster has it. The Vertex Boost has it. I mean, the only one I have to really turn on is the Boss, which, I mean, it's fine. But yeah, no, I agree with you completely.
Does your Jackson amp it doesn't have an effects loop, does it?
It does. Yeah.
Because one question I had is, have you considered running, I think if I get your signal chain correct, you have the POG after chorus. Have you thought about running maybe, after your POG into the front end of the amp, back into the board, volume, split to stereo, and then stereo into the aux? And then you can go stereo out to front of house?
So the aux doesn't do stereo in. So the way the aux is set up.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
couldn't
the
you
speaker
go preamp, aux in mono, aux out to board, come back in stereo? Or am I misunderstanding how the aux works? Because I was just trying to think. I remember like the reverbs, like some of the effects in the aux, they sound really good. And
they're great.
The stereo outs though are XLR, aren't they?
No, they're 1/4 inch. So they are.
So you could go back into the boards. You just have your Strymon stuff after the aux.
Yeah. I tried to make it as simple as possible. Thought about, so I've done effects loop stuff, and then I've done non-effects loop stuff. And for me, and it's just one of those things that I have come to realize, like, I'll obsess over making sure this is all dialed in, and then I'll play the set and I'll think it sounds horrible. And I'm like, oh, why does it sound like that? I can't believe I did that. But then other people are like, oh, wow, it sounds really great. And I'm like, that sounds good. So like my perception of how that sounds is completely different from someone else.
Well, you're in the cafetorium, So.
And you have a mono mix.
And I have a mono mix. Well, I recorded in the Logic for after service the post, like remix everything. And I realized I'm like, I could just get my own like wireless in-ear monitor pack and stuff and like plug it into my DAW of my computer. And I could technically get in a stereo mix from Logic and bypassing the Midas console. And so then now I'm going down that rabbit hole because I could potentially have my own stereo mix from my computer. It's a whole stupid mess. I'm intrigued by things that are not guitar related right now because I do so much guitar related stuff that I'm like, oh, video and audio sounds fun. Why don't I start learning that?
You thought guitar gear was expensive.
Oh my gosh, my friend,
into video
and photo lenses and how many lenses. Yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, no. So the aux doesn't do stereo. I wish it did stereo, but because it takes that amp head in load, there's not like a stereo option, which is fine. I'm eventually gonna have the spot to where I can run the Jackson and a Fender Deluxe and mic them up and in a room.
Two
like
auxes.
Or use two auxes or mic them up and use. See, that's the thing is if I didn't have to lug it all around all the time, I would bring 2 amps. But bringing like I'm gonna have a friend's, I think his like actual like Fender Deluxe in a couple weeks, and he's like, it's heavy. And I was like, how heavy is it? He goes, it's heavy. It's not like some of these other
kids
amps.
Can carry it.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
my kids can't.
You're going to be a shepherd to those oxen out
exactly.
there.
You got the farm.
Sunday.
I'm bringing the farm to church today, guys.
Hey, Farm of Tone. No, it's funny though because I was so excited about it and it sounded great in my ears, and my friend's like, "Oh, that's so good and punchy," and I was like, "Really?" And then he's like, "Are you using that pedal?" And I was like, "No, that's why I have this amp right next to me." He goes, "Oh, it sounded like that pedal you always use, like that UA thing." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so you can't tell the difference. It just sounds the same to you." Yeah. So, but yeah, no. So that's it for me. It's quite a haul, especially in Texas and jeans in the summer. I guess it's not summer now, but
probably your cafetorium is air conditioned, I would hope.
Thankfully it is. And it's
cafetorium.
It's not a cafetorium without it. So
I've never heard this term before. It's sort
I
of
haven't
like
either.
the way that Taco Bell, like collapses names of like the enchilada burritos, the enchilito, or the quesadilla
Pretty much.
burritos, the quesarito. Like two unrelated things have come together
Yeah.
to form a new name.
The worst part about it being a cafetorium or whatever you want, or however you want to say it, is that there's an ice machine. So like during service, it'll just start dumping ice. It's just like everyone freaks out. But yeah, no, cafetorium, that's the
trying to
thing.
set
So
this nice scene.
That's the Holy
quiet
Spirit, man.
pad. It's like,
Holy Spirit is cracking down.
it's like we feel you. It just starts. Yeah, it's a mess. It's funny.
It sounds
So,
like
yeah.
the cafetorium is a vibe. Like lots of good
It
times
is.
to be had. You've
Nice
got
and
built-in
echoey.
reverb. You've got nice machine, also, which probably is affected by the reverb.
Yeah, it's
It comes
chilling.
before the room in the signal chain there, so that ice machine
Yeah.
gets it all.
Is it hardwood in there, or is it linoleum? Because people don't talk
Linoleum.
enough about
I
the
was gonna
linoleum
say,
reverb.
yeah.
That is a sound.
The lino verb.
So they have like padding in the ceilings, which is nice, and like it looks great. But the whole floor is linoleum. Yeah, it's great. It's nice and
Or some sort of
echoey.
vinyl. Yeah.
Lots of
Something.
reflections.
It's very, yeah. So yeah, that's my setup. Do we have time? Do we want to quickly go over guitars, or we think we up? I don't even know how long we've been doing this.
Yeah, I mean, if you have time, I have time.
Yeah, I
I'll
have
be
a few-
short and sweet. I'll start you guys
Me
off
too.
on guitars, and
Let's do it.
I'll quickly do my amp. I have in Canada, everywhere actually right now. I cleared out Australia. Everywhere I have one electric guitar. Two electric guitars. One that I use, and it's a 60th anniversary reissue Telecaster, completely gutted. All the electronics are gone, and was replaced with blanking on the pickup name. I'm so sorry, guys. How embarrassing is that? But upgraded the pickups, all the wood, the rest of the hardware is stock, and it just sounds awesome.
Is EMGs? You put EMGs in
Yeah,
it?
just some active. I turned it into an active metal guitar. Pretty proud of that. Routed the pickup slots myself. No, it's a great guitar. And again, I love the Vox sound. And so I have a matchless Lightning, 1x12 with reverb, and then fluked out with a buddy and bought a matchless, what I thought was an HC30. Turns out it was an HC85, which is a super rare old matchless head. And it just sounds awesome. And it makes my Lightning, which was previously my favorite amp, it makes it sound like garbage. It's unfortunate, but also great because, it's just a great sounding amp. So that's it for me. I don't have multiple guitars. I do have, the two amps, but that's it.
I can see quite a collection behind you, Mason.
Well, I for this rig that I showed today, I'll primarily be using a Roy Gallagher Strat, and that has a few changes to it. I bought the King Tone, like tone control that has like a bunch of different offsets for different values on a rotary switch, so you can kind of get various sort of bright and or darker kind of sounds from it that are resembling some of the things that you would get in terms of the glassiness of like a SRV type tone. In the pickups, I changed from the original ones. I feel like were some sort of Dan Armstrong pickups that came with the Roy Gallagher Strat, 'cause that's what he used, but they were pretty high output. And so mine have a pickup called the Rattlesnake pickup set from Sonic Pickups. And I wouldn't say that they're like a big name pickup company that a lot of people know of. And in fact, I didn't really have a lot of expectations of how they would sound. But one of these guys that makes pickups, Sonic Pickups, he was really interested in a pedal, and he had messaged me. He's like, "Hey man, can I trade you some pickups for, I don't remember what pedal, probably a steel string or something." It's like, sure. So I traded him, and he sent him, and I was kind of like, oh, I'll just see what they sound like, because I knew I wanted to change away from what I had. and I've really liked them, and so I've never gone to experiment with other stuff. I've just kind of left them in there. So they've been there for a couple of years, and I think they sound really great. And I think it's just kind of his take on a 60s pickup that would have kind of been more in that SRV style vibe. But I think they sound really good, and I've been using them, and so that's kind of primarily what I would envision using with this board is that guitar. It's tuned to E flat, and probably for the amp. I've been using, the amp that we manufactured, in limited quantities called the Doctor Special, which is kind of a 50 watt steel string Singer with some, kind of my take on it, which I'd say the biggest deviation is I feel like it's a little bit more pedal friendly. Some of the Dumble clean tones can be, maybe a little stiff in some regards. This is pretty nice and squishy for pedals and overdrives and stuff like that, which I like, as long as it's just not too overly compressed. And I also have a 67 Super Reverb that I plan to use a lot with this, which I think sounds really good with this sort of setup and the Strat and all that stuff. So those are probably going to be the primary amps I would use with this.
Love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I just have the Gretsch Players Edition White Falcon, and then a Duo Jet that's black. And I used to have the 68 Fender Strat. But I brought it back to the shop and was like, all right, take it off my ticket. I'm waiting for like a Gretsch Penguin to come through because I'm a huge Gretsch fan. So I'm waiting for the day someone wants to trade in or we get a really good deal on a white Penguin or a black Penguin. So
have you checked out Nigel's one yet?
I have seen it. We don't carry Gretsch anymore, unfortunately. But I've had 5 or 6 people ask me, and I'm like, they're like, oh, have you tried it? I'm like, no. Do you have it? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, if you would like me to try it, I would love to try it. So bring it over. I hear it's amazing. Everyone talks about it.
Yep.
I've always just loved Gretsch. So those are mine right now. I don't have anything else. I just keep it simple and I end up playing just one guitar for the whole set, and then closing, I'll be like, sure, I'll play the second one. But half the time I end up picking up the Falcon. So it's the guitar I wanted for over 10 years, and I finally got it. So now I can't put it down. So, yeah.
I have one issue with Nige and his Penguin that I would like to voice on this.
Yeah, let's hear it. You've heard it here first.
It's been an issue with Nige. I used to live in the same city. Rarely we would play together. I'm not trying to say me and him were best buds because we're not, but we'd play together every once in a while. And I've had this issue with him from day one. If he hears this, Nige, this is directed at you. If he plays, let's say the Penguin, his new signature Penguin with Gretsch, he makes it sound great. It sounds awesome. The tones are crisp. Amp is chimey. Everything is right with the world. I pick up that same guitar into the same amp. It doesn't sound the same. And so I don't know. I think maybe there's something wrong with the guitar. There's definitely something wrong with the tubes in the amp because whenever I play the same gear as Nige, doesn't sound that great. So Nige, I await your response. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that. Maybe some unanimous support would be appreciated.
Mm-hmm. I have the same kind of support when it comes to me and Andy. I was
going to say, yeah,
because I put his boards together and I play on it, and it sounds mediocre. But then Andy plays it, and it's just like, holy crap!
Yep. What'd you
I
change,
don't understand it. I just like shake off the hands, slap them a few times. You're like, come on, make it
Punch
work.
Andy in the face. Now play.
I just like. And then he'll warm up, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. See, you're using my techniques. I get it. I see."
Well, you sound more like his brother. You sound more like his brother, Randy Timmons.
Yeah, that's right.
It's going more for the tone of his brother, Randy.
One secret that I thought would work is just slightly detuning the A string and then handing it over. It's like, okay, there you go. Still doesn't work. Still sounds awesome.
And they would compensate by playing it in a different position to make it sound just how it needs.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Exactly. So that's my issue. Thanks for letting me guys get that off my chest. I don't have anything more to add on the gear front.
Yeah.
But it's cool to hear the unanimous love for the Dimension C, though. What a
yeah,
great
and at least Grant and I are still representing the Ibanez/Ibanez Tube Screamer. So we're keeping it alive. There was Brian and I both had the Vertex Boost.
Mm-hmm.
We all had the Dimension C. I think people should immediately go out and buy that.
We both had the Vertex boards.
Yes, we both had Vertex boards, and
I haven't decided on my pedalboard surface yet, so I might be hitting up the Vertex website.
Should you be inclined? But I think the overall message here is that there are infinite paths to Tone Town.
Indeed.
And we've shown here some really great options, some areas where there's consensus, and luckily there are places where you can go out and buy this stuff, some of which are our sponsors that make this very podcast possible. You could go to the Guitar Sanctuary. If you're already sold on one of these pedals, you're like, I need to go and get it now, head over to the Guitar Sanctuary. They have these available in store if you want to make your way over to McKinney, Texas, and pay Brian a visit. Bring him some water from Starbucks. It's triple filtered.
Thank you.
Please.
Or if you just want to order it online, you can do that from the Guitar Sanctuary. But also, if you're not totally sold, you're like, I don't know if I totally trust the opinions of these three guys, you could head over to the Pedal Genie. And Pedal Genie, as I've said, is the Netflix of pedals. You can rent the pedals that you're considering that you want to buy. And right now they're offering half off, 50% off. That's halfway to free of your first month with Pedal Genie. So if you decide that you want to do that with Pedal Genie, you can get half off the first month using the coupon code BOARD, BOARD, at checkout, and you get half off, and you can rent the things that you're interested in trying, and you get to try them with your own rig sent to you in the comfort of your own home. Easy way to check out some pedals if you don't want to buy it yet. Also, if you're considering building a rig, as Grant is in the process of doing right now, and I'm considering, trying to make some time here over the next few weeks to try to get my board finished, you can most certainly get those materials. We could get those materials from a place like Bestronix. They sell all of the cables, all of the connectors, whether you're talking about DC, AC, audio. They sell it all, whether it be Switchcraft, Neutrik, Square Plugs. They have it all available there, and they're offering a 10% store-wide discount to anybody who is a listener of the podcast using the coupon code DACHAIRS. If you remember the old SNL, Da Bears skit, this is based on that. DACHAIRS. DACHAIRS will get you 10% off store-wide from Bestronix if you're interested in any of the materials that you might need to build your own pedalboard. Also, our friends over at Creation Music Company. They make pedalboards. They make cases. They have pedalboard accessories as well. They sell their own brand of plugs and connectors, beautifully made. Brian exclusively uses them now in almost every single one of his rig builds. Their mini cakes look really, really cool. They are also offering a 15% discount to any of our listeners using the coupon code Chairmen15, CHAIRMEN 15. That's the number 15, not the letter 15, in case you're wondering. And you can get 15% off anything in their store. Absolutely amazing stuff. I think between all the sponsors, these are literally all things that we use between the three of us that we can recommend and say confidently that you can employ and use these services or these products. You're going to have great results in your rig builds, in your tone, on your pathway to Tone Town. Any last thoughts before we wrap up today, Brian or Grant?
I would say I did leave out one thing about my board that I did want to mention that I don't want to leave unsaid is the MIDI Baby by Disaster Area. If you need a very small compact MIDI controller that can send PCs or CCs or MIDI clock, the Disaster Area MIDI Baby is amazing for that. You can connect it to an editor. You can program what the tap is, what the hold is. It can, like for me, it's cycling my timeline. If I hold it, it's going to change to a different preset on my Big Sky. It's very compact, very simple. That was the last thing. I didn't want to forget to mention it, but the path to Tone Town are all sorts of exits and on-ramps and detours and side roads, but take your time, figure out your unique signal chain, how you need your setup to react and sound, and what works. And don't be afraid to put a tube screamer on your board.
There you go.
Or
Couldn't have said it
Dimension
better
C.
myself. Yeah.
So that's it for me.
I really don't
Great.
have much more to add. It was great hearing about your guys' boards and loved hearing about how you guys are running them. It's cool to see that we're all using slightly different approaches, some shared things. In my mind, we're all on slightly different vehicles on the way, but hopefully headed in similar directions. So it was fun having the chat with you guys. Hope you guys in the comments, put in the comments maybe some of the pedals that we missed that you think that would really enhance our journey. Because I always
critiques of
I'm
any
not
of our
ready.
boards.
I'm not ready. The critiques, it's too close to home still. Wait till
Listen,
my board is done. Then
I'm
critique
ready
me.
I'm ready for my feelings to be hurt. Just kidding. No,
YouTube is the place. Let's just
Yeah.
be honest.
YouTube is.
So critiques and recommendations welcome.
Yeah.
But no, that was fun. Had a great time. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Same.
We will see you next week.
Awesome. Later.
Yeah.